Pick me up off the floor I've fallen down.
I heard somewhere recently that like all the people in power are reptilians.
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT and I asked Google, like, where did this even come from? And I guess it's been around for a long time. Some people say it's even like a racist type thing that like if you go back in history, you'll read a lot of lore about Jewish people being reptilian, and just people in power being reptilian type people. And in the 80s also there were a series of TV shows. I don't know if you remember them. V, do you remember V?
Oh God, yeah,
And
yeah. I watched V. There was too many series on at the same time. V, and then the Last Days of Pompeii. Everyone in my school was watching V, but I was more interested in the Last Days of Pompeii, so I watched that
yeah.
instead.
No, I don't even remember the Last Days of Pompeii. So but I did, I asked around and I looked around the internet to see like where did the reptilian lore come from, and it's a conspiracy theory that alleged that shape-shifting reptilian aliens control Earth, and belief in reptilian humanoids can sometimes be traced to, like I said, anti-Semitic text. In one recent example, the perpetrator of the 2020 Nashville bombing subscribed to reptilian conspiracy theories. And oddly enough, there are quite a few crimes that come from people that believe in reptilian conspiracy theories.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a look at one in particular, the Kyle Odom case. Have you heard of that one?
No, I've never heard of them until you told me you were doing them.
Yeah, there's a few of them out there. There's one that was like a Nashville one, Nashville Christmas bomber. He subscribed to the reptilian theory. And then there's a few other, but I wanted to take a look at Kyle's in particular, and it's the Kyle Odom reptilian story. It refers to the 2016 attempted unaliving of Idaho pastor Tim Remington, which Odom claimed was motivated by his belief that Martians disguised as humans were ruining his life. While his specific claim was about Martian humanoids, the case is often it's called the reptilian conspiracy theory because the picture that he drew that's up on screen, not that one, hold on, this one. This is Kyle, and this is the picture that he drew.
Oh, wow.
Reptilian-like.
Well, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It looks more like a monkey to me.
A lot of people that do the reptilian, I know, like when I did mine, I didn't know how to describe what I saw. When I described mine, and we're going to talk about mine a little bit later. I talked about it being like, it looked like a El Chupacabra, but big, like really big. So to me, they have this crust and they're just very strange looking. And so the case is often called the reptilian conspiracy theory, and the key details of the story: in March of 2016, a U.S. Marine, Kyle Odom, shot Pastor Tim Remington 6 times in the parking lot of his church in Idaho. There was a manifesto that he wrote and he mailed a 32-page manifesto to local news outlets and his family. He claimed that Martians had taken over his life and that his actions were a last resort to draw public attention to the alleged alien conspiracy. In the letter, Odom stated that Remington was a Martian. This pastor was a Martian. And he also listed dozens of politicians, including U.S. senators and congressmen, as noteworthy Martians. He wrote that the aliens use controlled humans and technology to ruin his career and manipulate his mind. He was arrested in Washington, D.C., which was like right in front of the White House.
Oh,
And he was
Jesus.
throwing flash drives over the White House fence. His family stated that he had a history of mental illness. And so
Sounds pretty schizophrenic to me.
yeah. We're going to take a look at it, though, because it's very interesting what he says made him start seeing these Martians. And I first saw this over on Reddit, and they were saying, have you all seen that Kyle Odom story recap video? I was beginning these tapes, and I already feel the power and alignment with my spiritual self. For some reason, I feel like as I progress, I will have powerful, deep experiences, which I have been cautiously excited about. And this is talking about, Kyle believes that he first began seeing aliens after he began meditating. And it was like he says that they contacted him while he was meditating. And then after that, they just wouldn't leave him alone. They were just everywhere.
Oh God, that makes me not want it to meditate.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick look at it. Here's a news story when it happened 9 years ago, talking about this story. Hold on a second.
Okay. Oh, I love your avatar, by the way. That's pretty cool.
Thanks. I've been wanting to use it for a while. And I'm like, we're talking about aliens. Of course I'm going to use it.
Perfect.
Hold on. I think my sound is really low too. Let me boost it. See if that helps.
By Martians. And his story not unique. In fact, KXLY4 News was contacted by a Priest River mother who felt she needed to tell her story in hopes that the shooter, Kyle Odom, will get the help he needs. KXLY4's Allie Norton made the trip to North Idaho today. She's live in the studio. And Allie, this woman says Odom reminded her of her own son.
Right, Nadine, and Lisa Inman says that she feels heartbroken for Odom's family, knowing exactly what they're going through, and she hopes that he can get the help that her son never did. Lisa Inman says it's been difficult watching coverage about Kyle Odom.
The more I listen to it, the more I see my son.
It's been just over a year since she's seen him.
And I just miss him.
This picture on her mantle was taken of Matthew Baker in better times, before his mental illness got the best of him. Inman says she watched her son slowly unravel.
Seeing aliens in his backyard, and I knew something was wrong with him.
But she could never find him help. She says it took an incident where he stopped traffic on I-90 to get him a mental health examination. The diagnosis was schizophrenia bipolar. Even then, Matthew was only given medications and then released.
He ended up getting on a plane 3 days later, and he flew to California.
Lisa gets emotional because on that trip last year, she got a phone call that changed their family's lives.
He ended up killing this guy who he thought was evil.
Matthew was put in a California jail while he awaited trial for murder. And while Lisa says what her son did was undoubtedly wrong, he didn't need to go to jail. He needed a mental hospital because what happened next might have been prevented. Matthew killed himself in his cell.
My son was not a bad person.
Lisa doesn't want the same fate for Kyle Odom. She hopes that her story changes the discussion on mental illness.
They need
So as you can see, it's not an uncommon thing. It seems like when schizophrenia or some type of mental illness happens, it will lead into a type of reptilian. But here's another intro that talks a little bit more about the pastor.
One of the craziest stories I've ever heard is that of Kyle Odom, the bright young college student who one day snapped and shot 6 hollow point rounds into a pastor he believed was a reptilian. Now, what makes this story even stranger is the fact that the pastor came out of this relatively unharmed, returned to work 2 weeks later, and then was elected to a prominent government position, even though he was shot 5 times in the torso and once in the head with hollow point rounds. So let's start.
Now, is that not strange, though? How did this pastor survive this?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
Start to unpack why Kyle thought it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, maybe he has the same position that our esteemed leader in chief has,
Well, he's supposed to be one too, so.
right?
Is necessary to pull off this heinous crime to begin with? The answer to this question lies in his manifesto, which can be found on the Internet Archive. But let's start with, who is Kyle Odom? Born and raised in North Idaho, he grew up in a loving family. He joined the Marine Corps after high school and developed an interest in science. He went to school for a degree in biochemistry. He won numerous scholarships and awards. He graduated magna cum laude, then joined the University of Idaho. So why would he do this? Why would he throw his life away when he had so much to live for? Well, according to him, his life was ruined. It was ruined by an intelligent species of amphibian humanoids from Mars. I wish I was joking. So here are the bullet points that Odom wants people to know about these amphibian humanoids. Basically, they were here long before we ever existed. Their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours, and he's seen them do things that defy all comprehension. They have a massive breeding stock of humans, which they breed and control from birth. They use these humans to live vicarious lives among us. They appear to be completely normal because they're good at imitating human behavior. Now, the actual Martians live deep underground here and inside of the moon. They take control of wild human beings and use them as sex slaves. Don't believe me, he says? Well, ask Obama to take a lie detector test on this one. He says they tried to take me, but they were unable to control my mind, and they've been following me ever since. I tried everything to get my life back. I begged, bargained, and I threatened. I attempted suicide twice, but they stopped me both times. My last resort was to take actions that would bring this to the public's attention. So everything started for Kyle when he was at the University of Idaho in the spring of 2014. It was the final semester, and he was taking a heavy course load. The stress was mounting. So Kyle searched for a way to cope, and what he discovered was meditation. He made it his daily routine, and he got really good at it. Now, this continued until he encountered another being through meditation. Essentially, he went into another realm, and this entity telepathically told him, "You shouldn't be here." Instantly, Kyle felt guilty for trespassing into this psychedelic realm. And this emotion he had a positive impact on this being, who then considered Kyle to be a good guy. And I guess they merged, and he felt unconditional love. Their minds became connected, and it was an extremely powerful and life-altering experience. Now, the rest of that semester suddenly became exceedingly easy for Kyle. He felt like he had tapped into some kind of power. He exerted no mental effort, aced all of his tests, and did amazing, even in classes that were extremely difficult before. So after he graduated college, he started to interview for graduate school, and he accepted an offer from Baylor College of Medicine to work on a PhD in human genetics. This Kyle was very excited about. However, everything changed once he started the program. The moment he arrived, he could see flaws in every professor's research. His mind was so expanded that he could instantly understand the implications of entire research projects, and he was able to see the weaknesses in them. Kyle would voice his concerns to his advisors, but they casually would brush him aside. He tried to stay motivated, but he couldn't stop seeing the flaws in the foundations of genetics. So eventually he decided to leave the program. And the day after he decided to leave, his life became a living hell. He couldn't sleep. His mind felt zapped. After a few days of this, 2 graduate students from his class began to reach out to him. Kyle thought this was strange because they never actually really talked in class. Then when Kyle went to actually hang out with them, they started acting very strange. Unprovoked, they would point their fingers at him in the shape of a gun and go pew pew like they were shooting at him. They kept doing this, and Kyle wondered what the problem was. Later, Kyle writes in his manifesto, he discovered that they actually were not human, and they were tasked with making him the next school shooter. Anyway, Kyle continues. Things slow.
So as you can see, things are progressing for Kyle. When people develop schizophrenia, boys usually develop it earlier than women do, and you can tell that if it is indeed schizophrenia, because he was diagnosed with it, so we're gonna go with it was. You can see the progression here, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you can get schizophrenia too from like a freak accident. One of my closest friends, her youngest brother, was riding his bike and he hit like a bump or something and went head over heels.
You had
and-
trauma. Yeah.
yeah, had head trauma and now he's schizophrenic.
You can
Like
get it
really
from
bad.
substances too.
Hmm.
You can do it from using substances. It's basically abusing your brain can cause
Yeah.
it. Yeah, but
Right.
it's also something that develops later in life. It starts with boys around 17ish, and girls it's later in life, like in their late 20s, which is really sad. Not always, but that's the course it typically runs. And I actually had a stalker-ish when somewhere I worked, the owner's son was schizophrenic, and whenever he went off his medication, it was scary.
Yeah, I have a friend that's schizophrenic, manic, or bipolar, and yeah, she's I actually I no longer hang out with her because it would end up with like police being called and accusations that just came out of nowhere. It was crazy. So
Yeah.
I had to distance myself from that.
Yeah, I really feel bad. This is one mental health disease that I don't wish on anybody. It's very scary, and the medications they have to take really dull them and take away their spark, and it's just a very tragic situation. Although I have seen some people there's this woman that has been, I think she says she cured herself by not medication, by food and diet, doing the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet seems to be helping like every symptom there, every disease out there. But she's online and it's pretty amazing to watch her. So
Well, I'll have to check that out. Thank you.
yeah, I can't think of her name or I'd pull it up. I'd have to do some searching for her. But anyway, so Kyle is progressively getting worse here.
Yes,
Slowly
definitely.
began to improve after he stopped talking with them, but still was mentally exhausted. However, in spring of 2015, Kyle's luck seemed to turn around and he was invited to go to an interview with a prominent food company. Unfortunately, however, the interview didn't go very well and he had to take a plane to get there. So anyway, on his plane ride back, things took a strange turn. An older gentleman sitting in front of him kept glancing back at him until he got his attention. And as he kept looking back, Kyle's head began to hurt and tingle. Right when this happened, the old gentleman's lips began to curl up into an evil-looking smile. The pain in Kyle's head continued and got more intense as time went on. Every time Kyle felt it, the man would start taking notes in a notepad. About halfway through the flight, someone else in front of him held up a newspaper that said psychic reading for 5 minutes straight. It was blatantly obvious they were doing something to him, but he didn't know what. Once they landed, the older gentleman kept showing Kyle his track phone as if to say, "Get one of these." Now, Kyle had applied to several government agencies before this happened, so he thought this might be their way of contacting me. Out of curiosity, he decided to go buy a track phone. He would check it every day to see if anyone messaged or called. About a month later, he received a text message from a man named John. He invited him to come to church at the altar. It seemed to be like a strange place to be recruiting for government jobs, but Kyle went anyway. However, after he got there and went inside, something felt very wrong. He felt as if his life was in danger and became so uncomfortable he had to leave. A couple days later, Kyle started to receive other text messages from someone named Tim at the church. At first, they were innocuous Bible messages, but then he started threatening him. He sent messages talking about their power and other things. He then sent a final text message which simply said angels. Kyle thought nothing of it until helicopters started flying around his house all day and night. At this point, he knew he was in trouble. He knew he needed to contact them, so he made an appointment to meet John Petal for coffee. After making the
So then I'm just gonna break in here, and then perceiving the threats from the pastor after attending the altar church, Odom began receiving those Bible verses. And Odom initially saw the text as innocuous, but then he started saying he believed that they were vile threats from the Martians that he had been encountering, referencing their power. In the real face, Odom wrote that during a conversation with Remington, the pastor's real face was revealed in an alien face with bulging eyes, yellow eyes, and split pupils. And this made him say, yes, I am going. He is this like cemented it in his brain that Remington was a Martian and he was attempting to control his life. So Odom began fixated on Remington and believed that unaliving the pastor was the last resort to keep the public's to get the public's attention and stop the Martian harassment. Now, this is all PG that I'm talking about, because the Martian harassment went further. He was saying that the Martians were constantly, how do I say this on YouTube, massaging the thing inside of a man's rectum and stimulating him.
Oh,
Constant, to the point where he just couldn't focus. It was all the time. And so on March 6, 2016, and he believed that the pastor was doing this, Odom attended Sunday services at the altar church armed with a pew, and before confronting Remington in the parking lot and aiming it at him and firing multiple times, Remington didn't understand any of this, but he ultimately somehow survived this attack. And after the shooting, Odom mailed his manifesto to his family and news outlet before traveling to Washington, D.C., where he was ultimately apprehended while throwing things. And if you guys are interested in the manifesto, I will put the links to everything that we view down in the show notes, YouTube show notes. There is a page here that reads the manifesto. I can't really play much of it because of the details in it. I don't think YouTube would let me get away with it, but I'm going to play a little portion of it for you guys.
The Kyle Odom Manifesto. Before I read the actual document, I will first give a brief summary written by the Reddit user VegetableLog9608 for those of you who are not familiar with this story. And I want you all to keep in mind that this is a true story. Kyle Odom, an ex-Marine, decides to get into meditation because of how...
Sorry, I'm going to move us forward because I've already gone over all that.
Science. Went to school for a degree in biochemistry. Won numerous scholarships and awards. Graduated magna cum laude. It was my final semester, and I was taking a heavy course load. I was very stressed due to the intensity of my schedule, so I searched for a way to cope. I discovered meditation, which seemed to help, so it became part of my daily routine. As I learned more about meditation, I became interested in consciousness and our ability to affect it. I kept working on my meditation techniques and began achieving extreme states of consciousness. This continued until I encountered another being through meditation. It happened one night in February 2014, and it was the most profound experience I've ever had. I was lying in bed meditating, then suddenly left my physical body. I entered a space that was completely dark and had no awareness of my physical boundaries or orientation. I felt very peaceful there until a blue light began to approach me. As the blue light got closer, I realized it was another being. Once I was in the being's presence, I felt an immediate sense of wrongdoing. I felt like I was being told, "You shouldn't be here." I instantly conceded and felt guilty. Then I began to distance myself from the being. This had an impact on them and seemed to change their mind about me. The moment I began to distance myself from the being, I became overwhelmed by a feeling I can only describe as unconditional love.
So that's how his manifesto goes. And Shannon, you had mentioned something about being afraid to meditate because of something like this. And I that was one of the questions I looked around for. And I did find this question of someone saying, so can meditation work the same way as a psychedelic in bringing out a mental illness? Or are we really being farmed by aliens? It's always really smart people that this stuff happens to. That's probably the part that scares me the most either way.
Huh.
And these people are saying there's plenty of evidence that meditation can in some people trigger profoundly disturbed and or bizarre behavior. We can't be certain that the role it played in the development of this guy's psychosis though. And I am curious at the role if the meditation did anything. And was he using substances during the meditations?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So here they say, I agree with what ND is saying. There are a lot of possibilities and different things that potentially come into play when something like this happens. It seems to me that it's never a simple thing, and there are mainly compounding factors that cause people to snap in this way. With that being said, I do think that the altered states reached by meditation pose some of the same risks psychedelic use does. If one is not prepared to some degree, or at least capable of dealing with the possible shifts in consciousness and perception that occur, especially if it is not changes that they are comfortable with or able to navigate through. It can turn into extremely stressful situation when life is already hard enough to deal with beforehand, and one has many compounding problems and stresses that they cannot deal with. I think it just becomes too much. Some react violently while others quietly self-destruct or try to get the balance back and gain control and stability within their life again. In my humble opinion, it's all how one reacts to stress and extreme situation and copes. Do you think it's a possibility he was going through some great stress and the people really didn't like him, and this is how he's reacting to the situation?
That's a possibility. Everything is is different in their minds than what it really is. So yeah, I can say that it was probably it's possible. Sorry.
Yeah. I think too that the strangeness in the story is that somehow this pastor survived, and this is the pastor we're talking about. This was him 1 year ago.
A day of celebration at the Altar Church in Coeur d'Alene today. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Casey Lunn. It's been 1 year since Pastor Tim Remington was shot 6 times outside of his church. It's been a long road to recovery, but he had a big milestone today. XY4's Brittany Paris was there as he played the piano for the first time, and Brittany, that was something he thought he might not be able to do again.
Casey, Pastor Tim has been playing the piano for more than 40 years. But when he was shot 6 times, it damaged his hand and he lost a lot of feeling in his fingers. He told his congregation he played the piano on the anniversary of the shooting. Today, he did just that.
Pray that my fingers feel these things.
Laughs, tears, and prayers were shared at the Altar Church today.
Today was an amazing day for a lot of people.
As Pastor Tim Remington blessed the ears of his congregation. Keeping a promise that he'd play the piano again.
I have been practicing to try to play, and it's been unsuccessful pretty much, mainly because I can't feel underneath my hand.
It was March 6th, 2016, that Remington was shot 6 times in the church's parking lot. The gunman, Kyle Odom, was arrested 2 days later.
1 year later, I mean, I guess I feel a little bit of the emotion of it because it was just such a setback. You don't realize when something like this happens to you, the time that it's going to take to get up.
But he did. It's been a year of recovery and hard work.
These bullets traveled through my body at a degrees that burned things, burnt my colon, my prostate, and different parts of my body. I still got over 30 pieces of shrapnel and 3 bullets in me.
And to mark the 1-year anniversary of his survival, Pastor Tim kept his promise to his congregation and himself.
So that was him a year after that all happened. In July 2017, Odom pleaded guilty to aggravated battery with a felony firearm and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. 10 of those years are fixed, and after he will be eligible for parole.
Wow. Well, that was just an amazing recovery.
I know. It's shocking to me, the recovery. Shocking.
So it's almost, paranormal.
I think there's some, there's the paranormal elements. And, I had my own reptilian weird story that I'm going to get into telling you. But before we do, did you know that I wrote a little poem?
You wrote a poem? No, I didn't know that. What about?
I'm sorry, I can't even do it without laughing. Okay, yeah, no, I did a little poem, and here it is. Today's sponsor is Wild Deodorant, and roses are red, shadows creep too. Petal to the pits will keep the BO from haunting you. This Halloween, don't let funky spirits follow you into the night. Wild's all-natural deodorant keeps you fresh even through the scariest frights. And guess what? I'm in love with this new Ditzy limited edition case. I call it Petal to the Pits. I made that up. And it's just cute and spooky, and I love it. And you can get it over at shopwildrefill.com/pairwomen and use pairwomen code pairwomen for 20% off your first order. I do have that code pinned in the comments, and it will be over in the YouTube show notes. And yeah, thank you to Wild Deodorant for sponsoring us. I really like this deodorant. It works really well for me. And so I wrote a little roses are red, violets are blue.
That was precious, Amy. That was real cute. Does it smell good?
Yes, they smell really good. And or if you have problems with migraines, or you want unscented, they also offer that. They have males, more masculine smells. They have more feminine smells. They have some fall smells out now, and
Ooh.
yeah, and it works really well because I'm a pretty heavy sweater. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you my story. Do you remember me telling the story back when it happened to me?
Yes, I remember it. It always creeps me out, but go ahead.
Okay. So let me tell you guys. So it's kind of a multi-layered story, but I'm going to start it out when the reptilian thing happened, but I will be taking you back in time a little bit. So this happened. I went to bed one night and fell asleep, and I was sleeping for like an hour or so. And all of a sudden, the radio, it was one of those old clock radios by the side of the bed. It just started playing, but it wasn't music. And it was just sounds repeating itself, and it wasn't English. It wasn't even a language I could recognize. It was clicks and stuff like that, just repeating itself. But we lived near a radio tower, so I thought it was just the waves messing up, or maybe something had I thought maybe my ex-husband had set the alarm. My ex-husband worked nights, and that alarm went off at all times, and it drove me crazy. So anyway, I just rolled over and I shut the alarm off, and I rolled back over, and in my closet was there. I saw my closet door, and I had a drop ceiling in the bedroom, and the ceiling wasn't that tall. I was like 5'9", and so I would say the ceiling was like 7 feet tall. I don't know. I'm really bad at guessing how tall things were. It might even been 8, but if I reached my hand up, I could touch the drop ceiling. And there was something standing by the closet, and I never kept my closet door open. To this day, I'm just not a closet door open kind of girl. But it was open. And but my ex-husband could have opened it. I don't know. At that time, I didn't know about reptilians. I hadn't I'd heard about them, like I said, in the 80s, but I never like got the idea of like what they were, and that they were like these big creatures that enjoyed, that farmed us for human flesh and all that. I didn't know all that. And I certainly didn't know what they looked like. But like I said, what it looked like to me was like a chupacabra, because, and I think maybe I related it to chupacabra because we had talked about the chupacabra a lot on the show, and it was either yours or best favorite. Can't remember. Yours. And that's all I could think of was it was like those, and we had that woman from Texas on that had chupacabra on her ranch, and she had shown us that picture, and it was like really tall, and it had the crest on the back, and it just looked like that. It was standing by the closet, and then it just went into the closet and disappeared. And for years I've sat and I've thought about that, where it just went into the closet and disappeared. And the closet, when closets are never as tall as the ceiling, so it wasn't tall as the ceiling, but it was taller than the doorway. And somehow, and I've always thought about this, when it went into the closet, it didn't duck, it just went into the closet. And I've always thought about that, like, why, like, how did it get, like I even like afterwards measured around the closet, was really trying to figure it out. And the other day I heard this alien experience where this person said these really tall aliens came into the room, and they didn't duck, they just somehow, like, in the doorway it was shorter than they were. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just a thing they're able to do, because I really was stuck on that for a long time. But so that was the experience. And a couple weeks before all this happened, we'd done an investigation. I had a paranormal group called Haunted Hillsdale. That's how Shannon and I met. And we had done this paranormal investigation but Shannon, you didn't do this investigation, right?
Where was it?
It was the one that was up in northern Michigan at that old decrepit ski lodge.
No, I didn't go to that one.
Yeah, it was up in the, like, it was really far up north. I think it took me 3 or 4 hours. It was this old ski lodge, and the guy who contacted us, he just, like, on the phone he seemed fine, but the moment I got to the ski lodge, the other team members had got there before me. I had the worst feeling in my gut. Like, I just had this horrible feeling in my gut, and I couldn't stand being around him. And he was also so drunk and falling over the whole time. There's only been a few people in my life where I've been around them and I'm like, no, I just can't. I just cannot. And the only other time that I can remember it being so intense for me was when I was in junior high. The metals teacher, he gave me such a bad feeling that I just transferred out of his class. I was like, no, we won't be doing this. And I told my mom, I just can't. I forgot why I told her why I couldn't, but he gave me such a horrible feeling that I just couldn't. And this man made me feel the same way. So we spent the night at the lodge, and I had I got up, or like, we didn't go to sleep that whole night. And I think I left at like 5 a.m. I was like, you know what? I just gotta go. I told the team, I'm like, I gotta go. I can't stay here anymore. And they weren't ready to go yet. So I was like, I'm gonna go. They left a few hours after me, but when he got up, he thought that I was still there because he was still like passed out when I left. And I got a message from him at like noon. And he's like, I thought you were sleeping all this time. And I'm like, yeah, right. But this ski lodge was on a power grid. And I remember that we were standing, the locals had reported UFO activity out there, and we were standing out there looking up into the sky. And while standing looking outside at the night, I just felt like I was being watched. I looked up into the sky, and there was the power grid, and it was really starry and the moon was bright that night. And we were, doing our investigation around the lodge. And I would just remember standing, and I was standing outside. I had a ufologist on the team with me, and he was telling me about the power grids being like the UFOs are known to travel on. And he was really interested in UFOs, and he had the idea that there was really no paranormal activity like ghosts and stuff, that it was all stuff from aliens and UFOs. And that was his take on it. And I remember standing up there just looking up at the sky, and I felt like really watched at that moment. So going back to the closet experience, I mentioned it to the ufologist in Haunted Hills group. I told him what had happened, and he said to me, it was standing by the closet. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you happen to have any mirrors in that closet? And weirdly, I had a heavy mirror that from the back of my dresser, it had been taken off, and I just didn't want it out in the open. So I had just stuck it in the closet.
Oh.
And he said that they use mirrors as portals, and to get that out of the closet, because they also use closets as portals. So I just gave them this open invite basically. And then later we had a MUFON person on the show, and I was telling her the story, and she was like, you should have a regression. You should hypnotize yourself. And I'm like, listen, she's like, were you missing any time? And I was like, I don't think so. And I really don't want to know, to be honest, because it scares me. But she, later on, she wrote this story down that I told her, and she sent it to the Roswell Museum for UFO sightings. So my sighting is in the UFO sighting.
That is cool.
My reptilian story. So that's my reptilian story. What do you guys think? I doubt it still to this day, because I think about mind matrix, and in the dark our minds always trying to make faces out of shapes, but I just can't really describe how the sound came through the radio. It could have been the tower, but why didn't it sound like a human dialect? And I asked the ufologist too, why do you think, are they following me? What's going on? I was really scared. And he's like, no, they were probably just checking you out, wondering why you were up at that, that site, looking up at the sky, and they just followed the grid and followed you home, because if you're by a radio tower, they probably followed the grid. So
oh Jesus, dang, Amy.
Well, Justin, the good thing here is we don't have to all agree with one another. You don't have to believe me. I don't have to believe you. We're here, free thinkers, open discussion. Sometimes I don't even believe it. So I'm fine with you not believing it. But that's my reptilian story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's a good story. It's scary, though.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying you can entertain it. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm down for that too, if you're ready to entertain it. Either way, I don't like to be told what to think and feel, and I desperately don't like to do that to others. So
yeah, you have a point.
Yeah. Well, have you ever had any kind of UFO alien stories? encounters?
No, no, I don't believe so. The only thing I experienced that was weird that was like that, I think was man-made, but I was driving home from my mom's house to my home here in Kalamazoo, and along the expressway there's a stretch between Battle Creek and Kalamazoo where Fort Custer Military Base is, and it's on either side of the expressway. It just kind of cuts right through it, and all of a sudden I saw this ball of light, like it looked like a fireball, and it went over the expressway from the north part to the south of the expressway. And I mean, I didn't hear any loud noises. I don't know what it was. It could have been like military operations or something. I don't know. But it was like this big flaming ball that just arced right over the expressway.
Wow. That sounds maybe something alien, but I don't know.
Maybe.
I know that UFO alien stuff is the one paranormal thing that I never wanted. I never it's the thing that scares me the most because you lose time and you don't remember shit and they do weird things to you. It's like the thing that I never wanted, the thing that scared me the most. So. But I guess when the thing that scares you the most happens, then you're like, well, I have a reptilian story.
Yeah. Well, that was a good story.
Behind the barn, there's a thicket, and if you listen late at night, you'll hear a cricket, and it sings a song, and I know the words